Welcome to Casa de Confidence, a podcast for you. You'll hear some incredible women
and some awesome, cool dudes
going confidently in the direction of their dreams and living in the purpose of their heart.
You're our host,
Julie DeLucca-Collins, and you are our sidekick. Hashtag handsome hot husband.
That again.
And the producer of the show.
That I am.
I am an author, speaker, coach, dreamer, and most of all,
we help people go in the direction of their dreams
and support them on their purpose. So pull up a chair,
grab a drink,
and make yourself at home because our casa
is your casa. Welcome back to Casa de Confidence. This is Dan.
And the other person in this podcast.
This is Julie over here. And we say welcome back, but you didn't go anywhere.
We did.
Yes, we did. So we went on vacation. Didn't skip a beat, though.
Don't make it sound like it was all fun and games.
It was for me. I don't know about you.
Well, not me.
It was a little fun and business, and it was a good trip.
Business.
Yep.
Hey, by the way, I got my driver's license.
You did?
I did.
You must have gotten it today.
No, it was in the mail that Arlene brought in while we were away.
But when did you get it?
I got it today, but it was in really, Dan. That was a trick question, to say the least.
Tricky. I was a little tricky. You were correct.
Tricky.
So, he's tricky.
He's tricky. Okay, so if people are wondering, yes, my voice sounds like I'm sick.
And my voice does too, but when I get sick, I sound... Julie, say the word.
Weird?
Oh, man. It's supposed to say sexy.
Oh, that's your radio voice there, Daniel.
It's my radio voice. Anyhow.
Anyway, here's a note to self. When you are traveling for pleasure and / business, try to go to a place that it's not under torrential rains with a red alert because of the mudslides.
Yeah. So I learned a new word today in Spanish. Well, it's in El Salvador, which is where we were.
Yes.
A new word. When they name the type of rain, like when they give it a name, that means it's some serious stuff. And this one, I'm trying to learn a little more Spanish. And Julie, of course, she already knows Spanish and English and various other stuff. And I learned temporale. And I'm like, oh, temporale. It's like a tempest, like a storm and a tempest. They're like, no, not like a tempest. It said temporale. Like, thinking about the words like time. I'm like, oh, like temporal. Yeah, it's rain that never stops, basically. It's raining all the time. It's temporale. And it was rain that never ended until we were getting on our flight to leave.
Yeah, it became very sunny and beautiful. And yeah, it's not like the weather in El Salvador. It's not what it's normally like, but we are back and we had a good time regardless because we had family there. We had a lot of family. Got to see my cousins, especially my cousin from Geneva that we have not seen in a while. And we had a wonderful time. My sisters were down there too.
Yeah, got to see your sisters and your mom, your uncle,
and nephew. Oh my goodness.
And nephews.
It's a lot of family.
I got to meet, I had met them. I got to have good conversations with other nieces that were there also. So it was, for me, there was like 4 nieces and a nephew. One niece and nephew that I've known for quite a long time. One nephew that I share a birthday with. So and that is William. And,
William Bradford. He's been on the show.
Yeah. And Amelia's been on the show.
Oh my, correct.
We just missed an opportunity.
We did.
We could have had the others on our show too.
We could have, but I don't know why we didn't record. We had microphones with us.
Yeah. You know what we should do is have your cousins on the show.
Yeah, we should.
Because they're hilarious.
My cousins are hilarious, especially Richard. He is the funniest. Richard and I are alike very much.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah.
I also got to connect with an old friend from my childhood. It was very fun to see her. She had been living abroad for a while with her Argentinian husband and moved back to El Salvador and reopened her business. So I'm really excited that I got an opportunity to see her. But listen, let's get down to business here. It is June. We are about to finish June. And guess what happens after June is over?
After July comes.
I know, but then everybody's on vacation for July and August, and then you're back to school, and then we get into this race to finish the year. So if people are struggling to finish the year strong, they need to come to my new workshop.
Oh, yeah? What's it called?
I don't have a name yet.
Ah.
Finish the year strong or get it done. Maybe that's the name.
I remember your other one was what?
Get shit done.
Yes, it was. Yeah, but it was you didn't spell it out.
Maybe I should this time. The get shit done.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to start bleeping you. You say it one more time. God. One more time, I'm going to have to bleep you.
I won't say it one more time.
Okay.
But if you want to get stuff done.
Because we put non-explicit content when we run it.
I wonder if we should just change that, Daniel.
We're not explicit, though.
Well, we're going to make a lot of changes to the podcast.
We are?
I've decided. I've been thinking. You know, because then one night that I was sick.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yes.
Just so y'all know, we do have a guest on the show today.
We do have a guest on the show.
We'll get to that in a second.
And when the night that I was sick, I was running a fever. I really was not well. And we got really, really wet. And someone with asthma, autoimmune, you know, a lot of things can trigger a bad thing for me. But, and
I got sick too, so I was of no help.
You were of no help.
Well, I was for a little bit until I got sick.
Well, I will say there was one thing that you were not helpful with.
Driving?
No.
Well, you wouldn't let me.
I wouldn't let you drive. But the thing that Dan was not helpful with is I was, you know how you get a fever and you're shivering away and you're really, really cold and you can't seem to stop shivering.
Yeah.
I was so cold, couldn't get warm, and Dan had the air blasting. The air conditioning was blasting on me. And I said, can we turn off the air? And he's like, nope.
Yeah, I was burning up myself.
He was burning up. So, okay. Now I lost my train of thought.
Well, you know what? We're going to have to talk more about this in another episode. But right now, this interview actually that you have here is a little longer. So we don't have that much time to talk. So,
well, I do want to say that I am incredibly grateful that our guest, Lisa Richer, came to our show. You know, her work is mainly done because she was inspired by her sons. And all of us end up doing the work that is propelled by some of our life experiences. And I think that this is a really, really great episode. We talk about neurodiversity insights. We talk about advocacy and support, embracing authenticity. And you should listen to this episode because there's full of personal stories and expert advice. And we have some really heartfelt moments in which you will see why Lisa's an incredible parent educator, and she is looking to understand more about neurodiversity and help others in this journey. My nephew, Mateo, who we saw in El Salvador, is neurodivergent, and I know that it can be challenging for parents. I know that it can be something that not only affects the nuclear family, but it affects everyone because you don't know, can you do this? Can you say that? How can you interact? And we want to be inclusive in everything that we do.
Absolutely.
That's all you got to say? Absolutely.
Absolutely. I'm just listening. I mean, it's amazing content. This is a subject that needs to be talked about so people understand more about it.
Yeah.
And more how to,
one of the things that we talk about also that I think is very important is the ADHD brain breaks. And this is something that I've started to incorporate, not because necessarily I have ADHD. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Same for you. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But this could be a really great hack for you as you are going on about your life. So check out the show notes for the information on the Get Stuff Done challenge. And remember, go confidently in the direction of your dreams, my friend.
All right. Here's Julie and Lisa Richer.
I do the same thing. I used to get very lofty goals. Actually, look, this one I started color coding too in here. And if you're tuning in, Lisa and I have been talking, and I have to say, we just vibe. She's incredible, amazing. I'm so happy that she's here. We've been talking about how we take notes and what do we use, because I remember things better when I write them. Is that the case for you too, Lisa?
Absolutely. I retain when I write down, and yet many of the years in corporate, like we were talking about corporate America, I would be told, you're not paying attention. And in reality, if I wasn't writing, I wasn't being respectful and paying attention because I couldn't retain. And when I look back on my life, as far back as even middle school, like I was rewriting my notes on note cards. And that's like how I would remember things. And so like that writing piece of it was, it's always been a part. I just never realized how important it was until I was an adult.
Yeah, it sounds to me like you're a combination of a kinesthetic learner and also a visual learner.
Auditory.
Okay.
I'm a multimodal learner.
Okay.
I learn
because you're in this world. I love it. I remember I have a photographic memory. So if I see it, I will have the picture will come up. It's like, here's the picture of that thing. But however, at times I don't remember, like, okay, where is that thing? My husband makes fun of me because he says when I put things away, I put them in a safe spot. I just don't remember what the safe spot is.
My husband and I have that same conversation. It's so funny you say that, but I don't have a photographic memory. But what I did learn, gosh, it must have been maybe 2002 or 2003 when I became a certified trainer at an organization I was a sales manager for, but I wanted to understand the training process. So I asked if I could become a certified trainer with them. And I did. And through that process, that's when I realized that I learned with all my senses. See it, do it, feel it, repeat it. Yep. And I learned that until I did all of that and then I shared it back, I never actually fully grasped it and retained it. And I've brought that into like all the work that I do because I feel like many don't even understand that there's certain ways that they learn best. And until it's brought to your attention, like mine, I was like, oh, wow, light bulbs.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting how as entrepreneurs, we bring our past world into what we're doing now, and it really informs what we're doing. And, you know, that's the beauty of having people from all walks of life kind of come into the world of helping others now, because people get the benefit of all the different experience of what we've been through.
Absolutely. And lived experience is at the core of, you know, the work I do. I say that I could have every degree in the world. And I've worked with people that have several masters and PhDs, and they're great at their intended degree. Right. Yet being able to think nonlinear, being able to kind of ebb and flow and live in the gray, which is where I live. They just didn't understand it. They don't get it. It didn't come natural. And so it's interesting because over the years, my way of thinking was so foreign to so many people. And it was only in the middle of COVID that I started to lean into my true authentic self and forget about the voices of how I was supposed to act, how I was supposed to show up. And I'm finding this world of people that are like, oh my gosh, me too, me too, me too. Let's create the change that we need to see, not what society expected of us.
Yeah, there's so many expectations that are put on us. And I know that you're a recovering workaholic and people pleaser, and you never created space for yourself. And one of the things that, again, we had this great conversation, but I want to revisit that. You are actually doing less as far as work, but getting more done. Tell me a little bit about what your secret is.
Oh gosh. Well, I hope no one has to go into burnout to learn that lesson, because that's a part of it. And it's not that it's a secret, but it's a reality. For me, in going there, I had to unravel all the things that I thought from a society and from the workaholic that my dad was, and the work ethic, that working harder meant you were working better. And making sure that we're constantly on the go and doing. And I can even think back now to a time where I didn't understand why it would take so long for somebody to get through a set of tasks. Now, some people, it was like really a slow and steady pace, and it should have been done a little bit faster, but there's a happy medium. And so for me, that's what I came to find. So through the last 2.5 years of self-reflection, of working on myself, like I had therapists for my kids and everybody, and I was leveraging them, but I wasn't putting myself first, and I wasn't finding out how I ticked from the inside out. I was ticking, if you will, from the outside in. So like I was doing it based on being that people pleaser, and that what I thought I needed and expected, and what people thought of me. In reality, what I've realized is when I slow down, whether I have to pause every hour to journal or to do, like I like to color now, like mandalas. It started out for my younger son, for him to self-regulate. And I realized it helps me just kind of shift my thinking, use a different part of my brain. And so that's really like, it's not really a secret. It's go slow to go fast. And
go slow to go fast. So good.
Yeah. Less hours, way less hours, making intentional decisions with everything, intentionally choosing what I say yes to, what I say no, not yet, not now, and not feeling guilty about it. So that's that balance.
Yeah. Guilt is that unhelpful feeling. And by the way, if someone is listening, right, you cannot be productive or move ahead if guilt is what you're feeling about something. And, we have to realize that we have limitations. We cannot do it for everyone. And by the way, we're not going to be perfect. You came from a background of being in gymnastics, and you competed. Tell me a little bit more about that and how that shaped you, and some of the things that you had to change from being that driven person.
Oh gosh, how much time do we have? So I started gymnastics when I was 5. I had seen somebody at the preschool that I was in, they called it a nursery school back then. 50s. So we definitely different than what they call things now. But I taught myself a cartwheel, and the girl there was taking Monday tumbling classes at a gym called Parkettes in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And I lived in Easton. And I went home and told my mom, I want to do gymnastics. So I went and I did that tumbling class and just really fell in love with it. There was one day I said I didn't want to go. My mom called the coach. Her name was Robin, ended up being one of my elite level coaches too, ironically. She's like, let her do what she wants. If she wants to come back, she will. And I never looked back. Like I was constantly there. I evolved in the gym. I made U.S. junior national team competing for the U.S. the first time when I was 11. I competed internationally, and all the hours of training really just led to a lot of who I am: the discipline, the persistence, the what people like to call now the 1% better, and the perseverance, and figuring out like when you can push yourself past your limits and when you need to not do that. It shaped everything about my being. And also as an adult, I'm recognizing just how many things I had to learn to deal and cope with based on some of the neurodivergent diagnoses that I've gotten as an adult.
How much
I was really like working 2-3 times as hard as others that were at the same elite level as me because of some of those things. And so the fear and the guilt and the frustration of not making the Olympic team or not making it, all of those ups and downs, the ability to be a part of an organization where now as alumni, we all come together and support one another, whether we were national team, world team, Olympic team, whatever it was, we're all part of this sisterhood, if you will.
Yeah.
What do you do after? Like when that is it, then what happens next?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was lost for many, many years after that, not getting injured and then not knowing what I wanted to do. But as a mid-adult, I would call myself, right? I don't know what else to call it. That I look back on it and I'm now, and you and I were talking about lived experience, I'm now getting to leverage all of who I was from 11 to 15 when I was at my prime as a gymnast to help others in ways that I wish I had remembered my 11 to 15-year-old self when I was in my 20s, 30s, and even early 40s. Like I had lost sight of that person. But what I realize now is it shaped everything about what I do now and who I am.
Yeah. You know, I'm hearing you talk about this, and I think about, and I was just thinking this morning. I, typically meditate for a little bit in the mornings, and I love, she's been a friend of the show. Her name is Monique Rhodes, and I do her meditations every morning. And she was talking, as she's talking, she says, come back to me, even though you had that thought. And it made me, of course, go into another thought. And it was like, how many times haven't I been in the next thought? And yet I've arrived. I've been where I need to be. And as I'm growing up, when I turn 16 and have a car, when I graduate high school and go to college, when I have a career, we're always chasing the when, as opposed to really being in this moment that really is the moment that we're meant to be living and sharing with other people.
I'm smiling because as you were saying that, I was writing down moment in time. Yeah. And you're right. I try to really instill in my children that enjoy and embrace these moments in time, because the moments in time are what help to define who you become.
Yeah.
And when you sit in that moment, which with an ADHD brain, I'm constantly all over, but I'm learning to sit in those moments of moments of reflection, whether it's through the journaling or the, doodling or whatever it is, and embrace those moments in time, reflect on them, and continually remind myself that who I am in these moments in time when my body feels, I'm an empath and I feel everything, instead of fighting against those feelings, embrace them, see what comes up and move with them. I don't like to say overcome or go around. I say absolutely to move through things and embrace them so that they never come out of our consciousness. And that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned in the last 3 or 4 years, really working with my therapist and working with a lot of my clients, whether they're the parents or professionals, because it was that younger self that I lost touch with. And it was actually through a visualization exercise that I did with an organization I was consulting with at the time, that we were doing dials on a TV in our minds. And it was it's now all fuzzy. We used to have the elephant, the rabbit ears, right?
The rabbit ears, right? We're not dating ourselves, but I love it.
It's coming into focus. And it was like these light bulbs went off of, oh my gosh, mindfulness, all of the visualization I used to do. It was stretching, and then a trick, and then 2 tricks, and then this, and then a routine, and then we trained harder, and then we went to a meet. It was like these stepping stones but the foundation never changed. We always did the same things to warm up. We also always did the same things to cool down. And then what we did in the middle changed depending on how we were evolving.
Yeah.
And I just lost so much sight of that over the years, but now I'm there. Like I know what works for me and what doesn't. And all that noise around me, people can choose to come with me or they can choose not to. I no longer people please to try to fit them because it was really never who I was to begin with.
That's so good. As you were speaking, I was not a gymnast. I danced, but I never was an elite dancer. But I've become a yogi. I got certified as a yoga teacher. And one of the things that I found in my journey is that, of course, the competitive side of me always wanted to try to keep up with everybody in the class and wanted to do it perfectly. But there's no such thing as perfect. And then when I learned that, hey, I can try to do that pose a little better than before, but I can always come back to that child's pose and rest and give myself the space to then be able to move into the next pose. And it's okay if that's how we go about it. We don't have to keep up. We don't have to fit somebody else's expectation or even our own harsh expectations for ourselves, because we tend to have these thoughts that we need to do and be and have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you talked about journey, others don't, but my business name is Journey to Bloom. And that's a journey in itself. I started it out as Bloom Special Education Advocacy. And I shifted from that after the first couple of years because special education is this little box of expectations, of preconceived ideas and thoughts, of ability and restraints. And advocacy, at least in the world of schools, was met with like, I'm crossing my arms if people aren't watching, that it's like, oh, you're against me. You're not wrapping your arms with me. And so, in the midst of COVID, when I rebranded to Journey to Bloom, and I rebranded as a neurodiversity consultant, because this isn't just about the parents helping their kids. Those kids grow up to be the parents or grow up to be in an organization. And yet we've never learned how to truly embrace our authentic self and build those relationships through that multimodal learning or whatever it is that works for us as a unique individual, right? And my aunt Mildred is where part of my business name came from, Bloom. That was her married last name, but she and I were thick as thieves, I guess is the phrase I would use there.
Love it.
And we were both considered quite the black sheep of our families. So, that's a phrase because we did things on our own terms.
Nice.
And I don't know when that changed for me. That kind of just sat in my gut for a minute as I said that. For so many years, we did things on our own terms. And I felt never more alive than when I was with her, except when I was in the gym training as a gymnast. My vestibular system was going, being ADHD, like my body knew that the gym 5, 6, 7, sometimes 8 hours a day was where I needed to be. And that's how I could get calm and, and focus. But it was like innate, like it wasn't conscious, So it's interesting. We talk about these journeys, but sometimes it's a journey of unbecoming what we thought we were supposed to be to become who we've always been meant to be.
That it is so good. And I love that you're saying that. Who are we meant to be it comes from actually all of the building blocks from before. We were talking about how you love the Wizard of Oz, and I also can't help but to think, right, that power is in us all along. We're wearing the slippers and we're walking the road. And when we get to the point that we realize the slippers are the magic formula, there's also that road that we've been on that got us there to that moment. And if we would have stayed in the same spot, we would have never had the different experiences and become the person who we are.
That gave me chills. Yes, all of that. All of that. It's so true. And you said this when we first came on. I love this is only the second time we've ever talked, but I feel like I've known you forever. And I just feel like
me too.
It's fun. But you had done a short, sometimes you do those little short clips, and it wasn't about specifically taking pauses. I forget what you were calling them. There was some type of break. So it was kind of that brain break, right? That you give yourself those brain breaks. And that I think before I had even met you, you had asked me to kind of, listen to just some things. So I knew what you were about and how you did your show and your podcast. And even then I felt like I was getting to know you just by the way
thank you for saying that.
Show up. Yeah. And your tone is very calming and engaging. And so, before I don't get to say this on here, I appreciate you wanting to talk with me and sharing what I do and who I am with your audience, because it's, we do very different things, but we do things similarly in some ways for very different reasons, or for potentially different audiences. But those intersections and overlaps are there if we just choose to see them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and thank you for the kind words. I know that I need to show up. What you see is what you get. And it took me a long time to get here, because I think I wanted to, in my corporate career, oh my gosh, I wanted to just show that perfect facade, because I felt that that's what people wanted. And as I started to get older and more things started to happen in my life, I started to realize that I'm not going to compromise who I am. I'm not going to compromise how I do things. I need to be myself. And that's because people have come along the way and have reminded me of that. I would be remiss, though, Lisa, if we did not talk about your two boys, because that is a little bit of the beginning of your journey. And I also, if you don't mind, I would love for you to share the story of the dollhouse, because I think that the listeners will enjoy hearing that.
You want me to cry today, don't you?
Okay. Well, I'll try not to cry with you. Okay.
Oh, no, actually, misery loves, not misery. It's a heartfelt cry, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, wow. You really remember our conversation and even what's on my site. So, before I go there, if I could, I just want, I want to just reiterate what you said about what you see is what you get. Me becoming who I was always meant to be and feeling comfortable in that place outside of the gym, outside of being on the uneven bars and doing all those things, took me a really long time to get there. And those moments in time, as I allowed myself to go back to my younger self, they all started to open up and unravel, and allowed me to re-become that vulnerable person that I was shut down from by being told, do this differently, or you're smarter than that, or why don't you get this? And how come you can't do that? And I don't think it was ever intentional that someone was making me feel less than, or unintentionally causing me to mask more and more who I really was. It was just how you say things is really important, even more than what you say. And so I share that because that lends into that story. So how you say what you say and who you surround yourself with really, really makes a difference. So both of my boys, as you know, are neurodivergent. The story that you're asking about is about my older son, who's now 17, extremely accomplished in high school as a scholar and an athlete, just doing fabulous things. With that said, at the time of the story happening, we had been working with a behavioral psychologist, and we were in a place where we really needed to change schools, and we still hadn't had our son diagnosed. He's diagnosed with autistic sensory processing disorder and several other things, but he wasn't diagnosed yet, but we knew there was a lot going on. And he had been bitten by a kid at the other preschool, and they didn't really want to do anything about it. Now it was in Calabasas, California, and there were some very rich, well-known people, actors, actresses, business owners. They didn't want to rock the boat. The owner of the school was private, right? So what are you going to do? So we were recommended to go and look at some other places. And one happened to be a Jewish preschool. We're Jewish. We're more, I would say, more spiritual than religious, but it was Reform synagogue, and the program sounded really great. And so we went with the recommendation of our behavioral psychologist. I think you should go and meet the 3-year-old school teacher. Her name was Andrea. We walked in. She was so kind and compassionate. She told my older son to go and, try to play with the kids and do some things. Well, he did not have many words then. He had words and they went away. And so this was the point of kind of building it back, and a lot of sensory dysregulation and a lot of things with frustration, and his processing was very delayed. So he might be thinking something, but he couldn't articulate it. And he was playing with this dollhouse. It was a Melissa and Doug pink dollhouse. You can see a picture of it on my website. It talks about my first ally. And Andrea and I were talking, and all of a sudden we hear crash. And I look over, and Joseph had knocked over the dollhouse, what felt like a million pieces. My gut drops even when I think about it. And she looked at me and said, "It's okay." Put her hand on my shoulder or something, if I can recall, and then went over and talked to Joseph and asked him what happened. What caused you to knock over that dollhouse? Got this very calm and caring voice, bent down on her knees so that she was at his eye level, and just embraced him. She didn't come at him. She didn't yell at him. She didn't berate or chastise him. It was really curiosity of what is going on? What happened? He couldn't articulate it. So she said, "It's okay. I want you." She had a safe space, a quiet sensory space in her room that had a tent and a little area to climb. She said, "I'd like you, Joseph, to go over there. Let me talk to mom. I want you to go calm down. And I want you to just, just kind of go sit there in that quiet space. Would that be okay?" And he's like, "Okay." At this point he's crying. I'm crying. She wraps her arms around me, and I might not be remembering it exactly as I wrote it, and just said, "It's okay. I can help you. I see you. I see all of you. I see him. He's got these things happening, but I think that I could help him and help you." And the whole story is really about unconditional love and unconditional caring, and seeing me for all that I was trying to do to help him without knowing what I didn't know. And to see her as just such an authentic human being that wanted to wrap her arms around us and help us. We ended up buying them a new one before we even decided if we were going to go to the school, because we were mortified. But she is still, to this day, she had him in her class at 3 years old. He is 17.
Wow.
She did not get to come to his bar mitzvah, but she was invited. She was also invited to my younger son's bar mitzvah. We haven't seen each other in years, but my son still has the Lightning McQueen car. That was always his safe thing in her room.
Love it.
When we wanted to try to let go of his doggie that he always had, so we tried to kind of keep the doggie away and give him something that was in their space. And we're still in touch. She is my very first true advocate for Joseph. And she's the very first true person to fully embrace me and all of me and just say, keep going, because he is going to be amazing. And despite all the diagnoses and the things that people said he couldn't do and would never do, she was right. She was right. She saw him. And it was, that's probably the first time I ever talked about that and not cried.
Well, I was getting a little misty because my career began, I did my student teaching at a preschool, and I worked at a preschool. I worked in pre-K. I was a pre-K teacher, and I picture that exact scenario. I could see it vividly. And I know how hard it was for parents in multiple different levels. Number one, we had parents that were incredible high achievers. We used to, this was in the DC area, and our parents mostly worked they were attorneys at the patent office.
Okay.
Or high executives and higher ups in the Department of War. And most of them were older parents that had, built a career and then started their family. But they, I remember thinking that they must feel so torn because they're used to being able to do things well and succeed at them. Yeah. And yet I could see like when they were running late or when they would come in and say, I'm sorry, I didn't even get to change her. Can you just get her a new shirt? And I know that it's so easy for us to jump into the, oh my God, you gotta be kidding me. But really the compassion piece and everything that we do, no matter where we are, it's incredibly important. And I love that story because it's a form of compassion that then ignited in you something that has grown to what you're doing now. And I really believe that you're turning around and passing it on, and you're doing it at a larger scale. And that teacher now is affecting the lives of the people that you are affecting. And if it weren't for her doing that, who knows how you would have reacted, where you would have gone, and, how you would have been able to support your son, both of your sons, and now the parents that you support.
Absolutely. And the parents and then the professionals that grew up to be adults that didn't get a teacher like Andrea. Yeah. And, you were saying earlier, we were talking about it's about, I wrote this down from what you said. It's really about them, not about you. Yeah. And we talk about compassion. I wrote down the word judgy as you were talking. And when on the flip side of that story, at the same preschool is a teacher in the 4-year-old classroom that blamed my son for her co-teacher being out sick because of how he acted and reacted, and said like he's got a visual issue and he's got this. So we took him to an ophthalmologist, and the ophthalmologist said, actually, he's pretty brilliant. He's learned how to squint to filter out all the outside visuals that this teacher must have on her walls. This teacher's son got thrown out of school in middle school, but she blamed my child for her teaching. Yeah. So we ended up having a behavioralist come and called him our shadow. We journaled things. We realized that she was triggering so many of his sensory overload and dysregulation. And so on the days that the behavioralist wasn't there, we put him back in the other teacher's classroom. And guess what happened? He was a leader. He had no dysregulation. He was thriving. So was it really about my son, or was it about how she was reacting and her feelings towards my son? Yeah. And I think that's such an important caveat to my journey to bloom and the business and the work I do, because we are all meant to be the best that we can in our own right. And whether we have the ability to get that support as an early intervention with the work I do with the parents, or if you become an adult and you're in a business and you're not sure how you learn best or how to navigate that art of relationship building, which is something that I do with professionals. And then what do you do with it when you're in a business? How do you lead people that are neurodivergent? How do you understand them? How do you work with them? And so it's this world of these intersections of the 3 things that I've lived through as a person, as a professional, and as a parent that I'm now feeling is my life's purpose. And I read The Alchemist a couple of years ago, and
love that book.
I'm like, oh my gosh, my life's purpose. This is
I love it.
But I was also told by people through the last 5 years, one, you can't do a business for neurodiversity. Like, what does that even mean? Then I was told I had to pick a lane. It had to be either the parents, this or that. And then eventually in the last 2 years, I just trusted, like it says, trust the next chapter. It's yours. I'm the author. And I just decided to push forward on all 3 cylinders. Yeah. And now every one of them is bringing in a revenue stream, and no one's questioning the fact that I do all 3 because my road is neurodiversity. Yeah. Neurodiversity comes with lots of segues, lots of overpasses, lots of roadblocks, lots of dead ends, lots of U-turns. And sometimes the circling of those traffic circles that you never get out of because there's, you can't get off the road. And so, I want others to understand similar to what you and I have realized, you get to choose who you become and who you get to help by how you end up showing up and how much you trust your inner voice, not the noise around you.
Yeah. I love this conversation. I have to say, this is probably going to be one of my top conversations. I'm listening to you, and I think that I think of the people, mostly women, right, that I work with. And many times I will talk to them and they'll say, oh, I am just a blank. But we're not just something. We are something. And what we are, it has a contribution to somebody else, whether it be you being kind to another person in the grocery store line or being a listening ear. We don't all have to be scientists and be on the news and do all kinds of things to be able to make a contribution in this world. And I think that I love too that you listen to your inner voice and realize that, hey, I know that the people are saying this, but let me do it this way. And let me continue, like you said, go in these three different areas. And now that makes you better for it because you are probably one of the experts that has dealt with each of these lanes. And that's a gift for sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, absolutely. It's true.
Been a huge journey to get here. And that the people pleasing took me off that path, and in getting self-care, I call it talk therapy. Some people call it something different, but my talk therapist has become my thought partner. So like at the beginning of this year, my first conversation with her, I said, can I go through my visual with you of what I was just describing, and courage is at the top of it. And then it's capacity, authentic self, and connections and collaboration. And then I have some things under each. Like I was like, this all aligns with showing up as who I am, being able to serve others as it makes sense for me, and having the courage to show up and say, let me agree to disagree with you there. And here's why. I get that you don't understand where I'm coming from, but please respect my viewpoint. When I was in corporate, I would shut down. People would tell me like, stop talking, or you don't know, or why don't you get this? And I just literally lost my sense of self. I didn't believe I was an expert at any of the things that people had hired me because of being an expert. And what I've come to learn is that was about them, their insecurities, their being over their head, them needing to feel like they were in control. And I innately am a person who I do better when I see others doing better. I am better when I know I've helped someone else help themselves. And even as a gymnast, when people were like saying under their breath, fall, 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 or being on a payphone, I'll never forget this, telling their mom, Lisa shouldn't have won that meet. I should have won. She always falls on beat. How come she didn't in this meet? Like those are things at my young self, my 12, 13-year-old self, that I don't forget those terms. And I think I would never feel that way about somebody, but it hardened me and it made me believe I couldn't be who I am. But I want others to understand it's never too late to become who you were always meant to be, because that is your zone of genius. And that is what allows you to really make a dent in this world. And I agree with you. I help one person, that's more than others may have helped. And one person other than myself, right? I can always help myself, but when I help someone else see better, do better, know better, to me, that's more important than running a multi-million-dollar business.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I think that for us, when we choose to follow this path, we really come to a place in which we have to do the internal work for ourselves. We can't just say, okay, I've got it together, let me go. And it's not about, look at me, I have everything that it takes. We have to do that internal work to keep going. I could probably talk to you all day, but tell me how you work with individuals. What can people partner with you? By the way, Journey to Bloom, you talk about clarity, confidence, and courage. And this conversation, I think, really embodies all of that.
Thank you. So I do. I talk about clarity, confidence, and courage. And ironically, my, and so that started out as, and still is, for my parents. So the clarity, confidence, and courage is about me helping parents get clarity on what they know, what they don't know, and what they don't know, they don't know, so that we can work together in a thought partnership type of way to build the confidence once they have the clarity on how and what and when to trust their gut, to be able to try to get the supports they need to help their child, whether it's in a school system or it's related services outside of a school system, like OT, speech, behavioral, whatever the case is. And then the courage to show up and stand their ground in the school meetings. And so I do a lot of train the trainer, if you will. I guide them in the meetings as well.
Incredibly important to have that support at the school meetings too.
Yeah, so that they have the courage to do it themselves. And I say, like, when a parent fires me, it's a gift, because that means I've done my job in getting them to that place and time. And 90% of those people come back and rehire me because they've moved into middle, or they decide they need to go to non-pub or whatever. So, and then some keep me for that confidence section. They end up being more of my professional other parts of my business to help them continue to trust themselves and to trust that and find that intersection between mindfulness and networking, which I call relationship building. Yeah. And that is, so the first pillar is with the parents, right? And my site says parents and educators, but educators are also professionals. So I'm going to be enhancing to say parents and professionals instead of educators, because the other pieces of the work that I do is in part with professionals. I work with some third-party organizations, and everything I do moving forward, and 2024 was kind of like 2023 started this, but now it's a finite in collaboration with. So the parent stuff is all one-on-one, but I'm still in collaboration with them in the school. So they're still in collaboration. For the professional, I do facilitation for art of relationship building. And so I'm helping people understand those nuances, those neurotypes, what it means to be neurodivergent, what types of accommodations, what you can ask for, how you show up. Like for me, if you had a background on, I would ask you to remove it because it gives me headaches. And I realized that I'm staring and squinting and my peripherals not great. So I would see like all these movements. So it's helping others find their voice, like as a professional, whether they're looking to change careers, go out on their own, trust themselves, whatever that is.
So good. And
then the third pillar is organizations. And the majority of the work that I do right now with organizations is I partner with a company that partners with employee assistance programs, because I had tried to get into this on my own, and I kept being told we don't have insurances, you're a solopreneur, or, what happens if something goes wrong?
Right.
But I kept seeing the need for neurodiversity consulting support. You have mental health, you have wellness, you have financial, you have legal, but nobody was doing what I was doing. And so a colleague referred this person to me, and now I also do workshops and work with that. So
that's awesome.
I would go into corporations and do it, but majority of companies, and except for this avenue, they'll get right up to the price point, and then they'll go, I'm going to take it from the recruiting piece, then to the DEI, and then over here. And they're not realizing that you got to start in the middle with the parent resource groups and employee resource groups. And people aren't willing to invest in that still. And because I have a prior HR background and DEI and all the several certifications, I can do the parent, the professional, and the corporate, because I've lived in all of those spaces. And it's all under the umbrella of neurodiversity and the intersection of neurodivergent and neurotypical thinking.
Amazing. And I think that, we live in a world in which, these are not the conversations that we were having, but they were really desperately needed. And I love that you are helping people see, the different things that they may not take into account when just having a regular conversation or interaction with somebody. I tell my husband that he works at a research center, and most of the people that he works with, a good majority of them have PhDs, multiple PhDs, multiple patent holders. So I would venture to say that there is some neurodivergency in there, because I even see that, right? And again, I come from a teacher background, so I can see a little bit of it. But yeah, you have to really be able to meet people where they're at and understand that this is nothing wrong. It is just like if I need to put glasses to see, right? It's just adding that extra ease to somebody in their life and allowing us to collaborate in a better way.
Yeah, equal access, supports, and accommodations for equal access to a conversation, to whatever it is that they need. And my 2 stints in HR leadership, one was at a social science research firm. So lots of PhD economists, labor, economics, health related. And then it was a digital agency. And so lots of master's degrees and PhDs, data scientists and statisticians. And, and it's different. Some can intertwine those 2 parts of their brain, but many can't. And, why is it okay that if you're a scientist, you accept that person for, people will say like the absent-minded professor is what I call my son a lot of times too. But he's brilliant, but he doesn't get certain things, and you accept it when they're in that degree field. So why don't we accept everybody as they are, and we meet them at their situational best, and we learn to grow with one another instead of fight against one another. And that's part of the mission that I'm on, is continuing to like wrap arms with those of you and like you and others listening that are in that, that place. That yesterday I just celebrated 3,000 followers. And
congratulations.
Thank you. And I said on LinkedIn, and I said, some people might think that's, why are you celebrating 3,000? And I said, because last January I was at about 1,200. And every one of them, at like 80%, maybe not everyone, 80 to 85% are intentionally people that either know about the world I live in, want to know about the world I live in, or want to support the world I live in and work in. And so to me, 3,000 is better than 10, because I'm not getting all the haters, I'm not getting all the the inbox emails that people talk about. I'm truly getting people that want to know better, be better, and do better, or help.
That's very good. I love that. And what I want to encourage the listeners is that they should connect with you. They should kind of get to know you, even if you don't know somebody in the neurodivergent world. Right now, connecting with someone like Lisa, it's going to help you just have a really fun conversation, number one. Number two, also be able to understand and perhaps create a ripple effect in the lives of others by connecting Lisa with the people that she is definitely made to be in this world for. So I'm so grateful that you are here. If you want to check her website, it is journey2bloom.com. And I know that she is in the social media platforms. Is it the same handle, Lisa? Where can they find you?
Yeah. So under my name, and then I don't post much on Insta, but if I do, it is also at Journey to Bloom. And I have, you can find me on LinkedIn or Facebook. I often post as myself because I am my brand and I am who, what I do. But I also have like Journey to Bloom, Neurodiversity Consulting. But if you look for my name, that's probably the simplest way to connect with me.
Amazing. I love that you are the brand. Absolutely. I'm so grateful. Thank you for being here. Will you come back again and have more fun conversations with me?
Oh my God, I would be honored. I would love it. This was so much fun. It flew by. I would absolutely.
I know. I'm like, oh my gosh, where did the time go? Yes, I could probably talk to you for another half hour, but I don't think my client will love that. So thank you for being here. Make sure that you connect with Lisa, everyone, and give her some social currency. Share this podcast. Please subscribe. That helps us bring quality podcasting, conversations, stories, and connections to you. So thank you so much for listening, everyone. I am honored that you're here. And with that, don't forget, go confidently in the direction of your dreams.
Thanks for listening to Casa de Confidence. We thank you for listening. And if you want more, go to casadeconfidencepod.com. Check Julie out on her socials as Julie DeLucca-Collins. And you can also check out her website at goconfidentlycoaching.com. Have a great week, and don't forget, go confidently in the direction of your dreams.
everybody. I know that sometimes we get very lonely in this entrepreneur journey, and I want to invite you to join us into our limited time only Purposeful You Mastermind. For many of us entrepreneurs, we believe that we can do it all, but the reality is that doing it alone only creates a lot of overwhelm. So join us at the Purposeful You Mastermind. You can find out more information by going to bit.ly/Julie's Mastermind. This is going to be the place where you are able to then unlock your full potential and achieve long-term success for your business, push you behind your current limits, expand your connections, discover new ideas, and implement them with confidence. You're going to get the support in all aspects and transforming you to the six-figure business you've been looking for. Pause and get off the hamster wheel if you've been spinning around. This is a time where you can get that support from like-minded entrepreneurs that are here to join you in your journey. Together, we can challenge the assumptions and land the speaking engagements and opportunities we want to grow our business and make an impact in the lives of people. See you then. Remember, you can find the mastermind at bit.ly, Julie's Mastermind.